Hey field school friends, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Now it's time for your homework. I am going to show you how to put your quilt together. Third grade, fourth grade, and second grade are all doing 4-patch sections. All of you should have received squares that complement each other. Some of them don't match exactly, but there would be a light and a dark or some kind of pattern that we would put across from each other diagonally. Most of you have done this part already. On the back, we drew a little square, which is the sewing line. For those of you who received your packet this week, there should be a little square in your Ziploc bag. So the reason that we do that square is so that when we're sewing it, all of our 4 patches will fit together if we use the same seam allowance or the same math as to how far we come in when we're sewing. The next step that we do is get some thread. Now when you're measuring your thread, always get at least the amount from your nose to the end of your hand. It's about 1 yard for an adult. Kids, you might want to stretch it out a little more so that your thread is nice and long. Then we're going to thread our needle. Now, as we always mention when we're sewing, needles have eyes, and pins, which I'll show you, have a head. So now you know the difference. Everybody should have received 2 pins, 1 needle, some thread, and a little piece of chalk in their bag. All right, now this was hard for us to do at the field school when we had our mask on, but now that you don't have your mask on, you can do it easily. Always wet the end of your thread. It helps all those little fibers to calm down so you can get it through the eye of the needle. And then we're going to double our thread. So we shoot this little rocket to the sky, and the streamer is the 2 ends of the thread. You want to pull them down so they match. And remember that little tip I showed you about pulling your hands down on the thread a few times. This thread is a little bit thicker, so it may not cooperate. But with a thinner thread, this allows the thread to stick together a little better. Okay, now you need to make a knot. Here's an easy tip for making a knot. You wrap it around your finger twice. Make sure to put it on the tip, not too high. And you take that little ring off and hold it together. And take your needle and you put it up through the ring from the bottom up. Do it twice. And then you hang that little ring in the air and pull down on it, and it makes a nice big knot. And remember, when you're sewing, you always begin with a knot and end with a knot. Now I'm going to take the 2 that do not match, put them together, make sure the corners line up. You can use one of your pins to keep it all together. You can put the pin in the middle so it's not in the way. And then we're going to do a running stitch. And we're going to follow that line. I think I'll move it over on this side. Okay, now start in right here. Your stitches should be as small as you can make them. It's okay to do 1 stitch at a time as long as you go down and up. Always come back up, because when you go and pull your needle on the back, you don't know where you're at and you might get a little lost and end up doing a whip stitch instead. So we're going to go across. Let me just fix my thread here. This is a very big knot. It should be just fine. Okay, now I'm going to go a little faster by going up and down. Now notice how my left hand is putting the fabric up and over the needle. My right hand with my thumb is pushing the needle through the cloth. This takes a little practice. Don't try to do a lot of stitches at the same time if it's too uncomfortable or clumsy. I'm going to go all the way across. And it's okay to go a little bit past your line. Okay, I'm going to come back up on this side. Now remember, this is so important. You have to make a knot at the end. This is a little easy tip for making a knot. If you pinch the cloth, that allows you to go in and out all at the same time. You pull a stitch. This time we're saving a pinky loop. Pinky loop is simply a little loop about the size of your pinky. You don't need to stick your pinky in, but it's just to give you the idea. Then you put your needle in the loop, pull your stitch, and do that at least twice. I think 2 times is enough. Sometimes we do it 3 times. Okay, pull it tight. Now you can cut your cloth. Okay, so you're going to do that to both sides. I'll do the other one, and then I'll come back when we're done. So I've got this one all done. Now I'm going to do this one. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now both sides are all sewn, and this is really important. The next step is to make them go opposite so that you have a diagonal pattern in your 4-patch. Then the most important part of a 4-patch is to have this intersection match when you sew it. So if you line it up with both sides facing you, the right sides. Remember, I'm going to just mention this. Remember, we sewed on the wrong side. We drew our lines on the wrong side. I forgot to mention that in the beginning of the video. But the whole purpose of this is so we're seeing the beautiful side when we're done sewing. So I'm going to line those up right in the middle, fold it over, and I'm going to double check it by turning this over to make sure, whoops, it's off. So see, I'm moving it over. We want to make sure that's exactly lined up. Now, I'm going to hold this up so you can see what I do next. This little extra part is called the seam allowance. So we want one to go to the right and one to go to the left so that we're not folding all those layers of fabric together. So the first place I'm going to put a pin is right here to hold those little seam allowances in place. So take a good look again. One goes to the right, one goes to the left. Now the other pin that you have, use that to make sure the corners where you start sewing are lined up. I have my needle and thread all ready, and I'm going to start sewing in the corner. Down and up, down and up. Now once you get the corner sewn a bit, you can take that pin out so it doesn't poke you and get in the way. Down and up. I'm going to remind you now to make little tiny stitches. If it's easier to do one at a time, by all means, I'd rather you go slowly and do it really well than try to do it fast. You are in no hurry. Take your time and do an excellent job. Now this pin's in my way. I'm going to take it out, but I'm holding those little seam allowances in the place where the pin was holding them. Stay on that line. This little line that we have for sewing is literally the key to making all of our 4 patches match when I put them all together into a big quilt. If we all sewed a different distance away from the edge, none of our patches would match. But this is a project that we can all do together by following some simple instructions. Okay, here we go, almost done. Staying on the line. There we go. Now we're going to make a knot. Now check, before you make your knot, make sure there's no tightness and that there are no little ruffles in your stitches. Want it to be nice and flat. No puckers. Now I'm going to make another little stitch down and up. Save a loop. If it gets tangled, just pull it out a little bit. There's one. Oops, mine got tangled, but that's okay because it's going to hide inside. Here's another one. This thread is very stiff. Wants to tangle. Okay. All right, now I'm ready to cut it. Don't cut right up against your knot. Give it about 1/4 of an inch. All right, now, voila. Looks pretty good. I'm going to take this over to the ironing board. If you have an iron and a board at home, maybe your parents can help you with this part, but let's go over to the other room. It's all heated up. Now we always press this from the back side, and take a look at how it looks because we did a right and a left. One goes one way and one goes the other. And it's easy to iron it nice and flat since it was sewn that way. And we'll just press it down like that. And then it is done. There we go. Oops. Okay, now I'm going to show you something. Look what happened. I might just redo this. See how that's a little bit off? It's pretty close. Pretty close. I think if I held it and ironed it properly, it might be okay. But it is just a teeny bit off. I might go ahead and fix that. Now that you know how to do this, you could do many of these and work on your own quilt at home. I hope you understood everything. I hope to see all of you on our Zoom class on Monday or Tuesday, depending on which day you have art class, and we'll do a little show and tell. Take care. See you soon. Bye.